Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, theFellowKGB. You can follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. And it is Monday night, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We got a game going on right now. It looks like the second half just kicked off between the Washington football team and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game's 14-3 right now. Not too much exciting things going on in this game right now. Roethlisberger has 2 touchdowns, almost 200 yards as well, though. James Washington with a really big 50-yard touchdown. And then Deontay Johnson did get the other touchdown. So not a lot happening in this one. We did see Antonio Gibson leave the game really early, so we'll kind of check back on him later in the week. But it looks like he's going to be doubtful with a toe for the rest of the game here. So we're not going to see Antonio Gibson in the rest of this one. I'm basically just going to hop into screen share, and we're just going to kind of talk about news. The waiver wire is going to be pushed back this weekend. I think most platforms are going to be doing waiver wire running on Wednesday night. So we wake up on Thursday, and that's when we'll get our waiver wire news here. But we do have a game going on here, Washington, Pittsburgh. I got a screen over here where I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. So we'll monitor that. Again, Antonio Gibson left early with a toe injury. We'll have to check back later on his reports, but he's probably not going to play the rest of the night in this one. So for tonight, I'll probably just be taking any comments in the chat room. We can be doing questions, whatever you guys need. Otherwise, I'm basically just going to kind of touch a little bit on my waiver wire report. I did kind of loosely fill it out. We'll kind of look at some things probably the next night and Wednesday night as well. But we do have a handful of injuries to monitor here. A lot of top-end running backs, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, who looks like he's going to be playing, so that's really good news. Great timing for the fantasy football playoffs here in Week 14 coming up. Josh Jacobs, I did read a little blurb that said he's probably not going to play this weekend in Indianapolis, so it's going to be a tough matchup for him anyway, so maybe it's a good thing that he does rest, get him back weeks 15, week 16. I think that would be not a bad scenario there. So we'll monitor Josh Jacobs the whole week here. DeAndre Swift, he's got an illness, and I don't know if he's 100% like healthy from his concussion injury a few weeks ago, but it's been disappointing that we haven't been able to use him of late. So we'll be watching his reports. Frank Gore also had a concussion. He left on like the first or second play of the game, unfortunately there. So that's going to lead us to one of our top waiver wire running back ads of the week in Ty Johnson. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about him maybe even later tonight, and we'll look at some of the things that he's done in his career so far. And then Kenny Golladay, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault. We got a handful of receivers here. We still don't know when we're going to see Kenny Golladay. They're going up against the Packers. But the Lions, without their GM and without Matt Patricia, are showing a good amount of fight there against the Chicago Bears. A nice comeback win for Detroit. So they do have a little bit of spunk right now. They're going to be getting Green Bay at home this weekend. So we'll monitor Kenny Galladay's status. And then the big news today, I think that is going to hurt a handful of teams in the fantasy playoffs here, is DJ Moore, who already had the ankle sprain. He's now on the COVID list, and same with Curtis Samuel, leaving them basically with, for an offensive approach, it's going to be heavy Christian McCaffrey, and then Robbie Anderson's really the main target there. They might kind of sprinkle in some Ian Thomas things. Not really sure who else is going to step up for a weapon for the Carolina Panthers, but it's not looking too great for all the weapons for Teddy Bridgewater there. And then T. Higgins here, he does have a hamstring injury. He was actually, he hit the double digits in a PPR league, so I think he was playing well enough to keep him in our lineups, even though the quarterback has been not exactly appealing for fantasy. But T. Higgins, hamstring, we'll see what he can do this week. Laviska Shenault also has a thumb injury, who had that really sick, the first touchdown catch of the game, or of the whole Sunday with the weird tip ball, where he's able to kind of just snag it. But he's got a thumb injury. We'll monitor Laviska. And then Mark Andrews, Jonnu Smith, Irv Smith will be kind of keeping our tabs on these tight ends here. And then there is a handful of players here that I did list that are eligible to return from IR. And Drew Brees is kind of the headliner here. If you are feeling pretty good about your fantasy team, especially if this is a super flex team, and Drew Brees is hanging around the waiver wire if you have room on the bench, he's kind of projecting a week 15 or week 16 return. They want to get him back and get a few games in his belt before they get to the playoffs. So he's basically eligible to come off IR this week. I don't think he's probably not going to play. It's week 14, but maybe as soon as next week, we could see Drew Brees back for the New Orleans Saints there. Joe Mixon, still don't really know what's going on with him. And then you got George Kittle, potentially week 15, week 16. So just check your waiver wires. Who knows? Maybe someone just cut them a little bit early there. So keep an eye on those guys there. And then I did rank my quarterback streaming options. This might change over the next few days, but Ryan Tannehill, he does have a really good matchup against Jacksonville. They kind of got embarrassed yesterday, but he was able to get enough garbage points for us to at least, he qualified as a quarterback one, I think. Let me just double check that real quick. So Ryan Tannehill on the day. He was quarterback 3 on the day yesterday in this 4-point passing format here. So Tannehill did pay off. He played pretty well. He threw for 3 touchdowns, 389 yards in a game where they were just down from the get-go there. So really interesting opportunity for Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. I should probably mention we had A.J. Brown on he left the game for a little bit with a rolled ankle. He was able to play. I think he's going to be fine. He's probably just going to sit out on practice on Wednesday, maybe Thursday too, and then probably practice on Friday. So we'll be watching A.J. Brown here. But for quarterback streaming options, Tannehill, Cousins, Rivers, these are probably my top 3 guys if you need help there. And then looking in Superflex leagues, Jalen Hurts. What do you do with Jalen Hurts? If he's still out there in a Superflex league, I think he's going to be a hot commodity here. He does play New Orleans, which is not – if he does get the start, that's going to be a really tough spot for the rookie quarterback to get his first career start. I'm not loving the situation. It might be something that you just kind of pick up and hold and monitor for later on after this game. But the Saints, not an easy draw to make your first career start against, so I'm a little nervous there. Trubisky versus Houston, he could be an interesting Superflex guy. But again, stash Drew Brees. If you can, hold out to weeks 15 and 16, I think he could be helpful for our championship run there. And then as far as running backs, I'm keeping my tabs on here. Cam Akers. If we just pull up the practice or the opportunity report, I'm not all the way done with the opportunity report. I'll be filling this out probably the rest of tonight. But we saw Cam Akers finally take over the snap share here. He dominated the touches. So you see 52 snaps for Cam Akers, 18 for Henderson, and only 13 for Malcolm Brown. So that's a huge win for him there. And then 21 carries, only 3 carries for Henderson and 3 for Malcolm Brown. So this is a huge all of a sudden development for Cam Akers, who might be useful for us heading into the fantasy playoffs. He scored the touchdown, only caught the 1 target here for 22 yards, but a really good day for the rookie. 22 total touches. You love to see this if you've been patient and you've been holding on, especially in dynasty leagues. This is looking like a really good pick. You just had to be a little bit of patience with it. So Cam Akers, he's probably going to be one of the top ads of the week here. And then Ty Johnson, filling in for Frank Gore, who did leave early with a concussion. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Ty Johnson if Frank Gore can't go. Let's just take a look here and see what his upcoming schedule is for the Jets. If you do need help at running back, we see that the Jets play Seattle, the Rams, and Cleveland. I don't exactly love the Rams matchup or the Cleveland matchup, but again, Frank Gore should be back by weeks 15 or 16. So we're going to get an extended look here at Ty Johnson, I think, down the road here. And there's also a potential for LaMichael Pirine to return too. I don't know if they're going to be rushing him back. They kind of like him, and the team's not really going anywhere. So maybe they just bring him back slowly. But man, 22 carries, 104 yards, 1 touchdown, and then he snags 2 catches for 13 yards. So a really, really good game here for the second-year player. If you guys remember Ty Johnson on the Detroit Lions last year, he was kind of like he was pretty much just like a PPR third down kind of back player who didn't really get too many opportunities. And Detroit just wasn't in a very good spot last year. So let me just filter by PPR points. And in 16 games with Detroit last year, he catches 24 of his 31 targets, 109 yards, a pretty low average of 4.5 yards per catch. But he was effective as a runner, 4.3 yards per carry, 273 yards. And if he's a guy that's getting heavy volume, this could be a really nice spot for Ty Johnson. Low-end RB2 numbers here. He didn't crack any double digits at all last year, but you did see him pretty heavily involved in the Detroit passing game. So if he's the guy that's just getting all the touches again, I mean, it's going to be hard to get 22 carries for sure. But if you're looking at 15 to 20 touches for this guy, he could be used as a low-end RB2. But again, it's the Jets. Are we going to trust it? But again, he's still there. Wayne Gallman's also another guy to keep an eye on. Duke Johnson. These are just kind of low-end plays here, but not too many. I mean, just looking at the scoring leaders from yesterday's running back group, of course, Montgomery had the big game. We were excited about his opportunity against the Lions. Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, James Robinson, Jonathan Taylor coming through with a nice game on the receiving end here. 3 for 44 and a touchdown. Also had 13 for 91 rushing. Chris Carson, good to see him back and catch a touchdown. But yeah, Ty Johnson finishing as the RB7 on the day. Pretty impressive stuff here. So Alvin Kamara also finally got back into our good side there. And then Adrian Peterson, as long as DeAndre Swift out, Adrian Peterson, the last 2 games has put up 17.7 and 17.5. He's gotten 15 carries and 16 carries. And then he does play Green Bay, Houston, or Tennessee, and Tampa Bay. So we're probably not going to trust him for this Tampa Bay game. But if DeAndre Swift continues to be out or any kind of lingering setbacks from his concussion or his illness, Green Bay and Tennessee present some really good matchups. So maybe I'll add Adrian Peterson to this list as we're watching for DeAndre Swift's practice reports this week. Nick Chubb, Alfred Morris, this was kind of a flash in the pan thing. Again, the Giants were leading this whole game. He only had 8 carries, 39 yards. He did get the touchdown, and then he also caught a touchdown here. So this is more of a fluke game. I don't really know if I'm looking to trust Alfred Morris all that much there. A couple other guys here that pulled my attention. Again, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson popped off for a big touchdown run. But Melvin Gordon, he ran really hard last night against the Chiefs. 15 carries, 131 yards. So this was a really good-looking game for him, and they play Carolina this weekend. So I do think Melvin Gordon should be in on a lot of our lineups. Again, he's pretty well owned for the most part in the ESPN leagues I'm looking at. But Carolina, Buffalo, Chargers, all of a sudden that's looking like the next 3 games, Denver has an opportunity here to really run the ball and help keep Drew Lock in positive situations. So this could be a really good opportunity for Melvin Gordon. A couple other names here that make sense to talk about. Myles Gaskin. Everybody was excited to get Myles Gaskin back. I think he's pretty much well owned in most leagues, but he just got the dominant share of the touches and the snaps last night. 21 rushing attempts for 90 yards, 2 for 51 as a receiver. So 14.1 PPR day. You'll take that. He's been pretty consistent and steady. He's got the Chiefs coming up, the Patriots, and the Raiders. I'm not sure about what to expect for this Patriots game, but if we see back in week 1, he did go 9 for 40 and 4 for 26. He did hit the double digits there too. So I think Myles Gaskin's going to be a guy that's in our lineups, probably just locked and loaded as an RB2 the rest of the way here. So we like what we see. And then I guess there's really nobody else it's going to be a pretty slim week on the waiver wires. I think you guys got to be careful and see if anyone makes any bad decisions and drops somebody that they shouldn't be dropping. But for the most part, I think it's going to be pretty bare on the waiver wire for running backs this weekend. So what's going on, Turner? Thanks for hanging out. Monday night show, we're just going to be taking questions. Whatever you guys got in the chat room, we can bring it up. I'm kind of just reviewing things from yesterday's games because waiver wires are going to be pushed back quite a bit this week to Wednesday night. I do think we'll be talking about waiver wire probably tomorrow night and Wednesday night as well. So any questions you guys have would be helpful. And I know the Corey Davis boom game came out of nowhere. Corey Davis was a pretty good play for a floor. He has been over double digits, I think, in every game. But man, especially once A.J. Brown left the field, it was all Corey Davis. And he was the leading receiver on the day here. So we see Corey Davis. It was probably the best game of his career, to be honest. A 35.2 game, 11 for 182 and 1 touchdown there. So he's got some really good matchups coming up. Jacksonville, Detroit, Green Bay's a little bit stingy against receivers, but I do think Corey Davis needs to be in our lineups while we get to the playoffs here. So Turner's asking, should we drop Goddard with Ertz back for Cook? For Jared Cook? No, I think if this is a PPR league, I still think I'm pretty okay with Dallas Goedert. We've seen Goddard have success even with Ertz in the lineup, and I just think those receivers in Philadelphia just don't excite me at all, and we kind of know that Philadelphia is built around a 2 tight end set. So I'm still pretty confident. Give me Dallas Goedert, who, if we look at what the Eagles did last night, and I know this was Zach Ertz's first game back, but Dallas Goedert, 84% of the snaps. Ertz gets 44, and then 7 targets, 5 for 66 here. So I do think Goddard still has value. That's an 11.6 day in PPR leagues, whereas Jared Cook, there's been some games where Jared Cook just doesn't even get – Jared Cook's his stats have been pretty frustrating. And then as long as Taysom Hill is the quarterback this week and then maybe next week, I have a hard time trusting Jared Cook. But he does get touchdowns. But for the most part, if we look here at the last few games, he's had 2 games with 0 catches, a 1 for 6, a 2 for 30. He's been pretty inconsistent as late, but I guess I'm open to him being consistent. I would probably rather have Jared Cook than Jordan Reed here. So I do think that makes sense. I think I would hold Goddard, and if you want to add Jared Cook, especially because we think Drew Brees might be back as well, I could see Jared Cook kind of getting back into something more steady here, where he sees maybe 3 to 7 targets per game. So I'm going to keep Goddard, and then I think we can add Cook over Jordan Reed there, just because give me the Drew Brees over the Nick Mullins connection there for sure. So we got Siddharth Merchant here asking a question. So we have a 6-team league where my team is insane. I have McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Hopkins, Devontae, Keenan, Michael Thomas. I can't choose which 6 to start. Yeah, man, I've never played in a 6-team league. That should be a pretty stacked roster for sure. So I'm not sure if you're starting 2 running backs, maybe 2 receivers and 2 flexes, or what's the uh, what's the situation for how many people you have to start? I'm assuming it's maybe 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and a flex. In that case, I mean, I think you have to. Christian McCaffrey is the one guy for sure, and then Devontae Adams. Those guys are the clear cut, top players at the position. So we're going to start those guys for sure. And then as long as with Keenan Allen in that Chargers game last night, I'm really nervous about Keenan Allen. So I don't really know if we trust him that much. But we do say, okay, so we do get to start 2 flexes here. So we're going to lock in McCaffrey and we're going to lock in Adams for sure. I think that's the easy part there. And then I kind of have a hard time benching DeAndre Hopkins right now. We've seen even in a bad, it took him a while to get his first catch yesterday, but he's having a pretty good opportunity with Kyler Murray. As long as they're in competitive games, he's going to get fed his targets. So I think Devontae and Hopkins make sense to lock in at the receivers. And then with the running backs here, let me just take a look. I mean, Derrick Henry had the worst game of his season last week, which was a little frustrating. But if we just look at let's just take a quick peek at the Tennessee schedule, especially for this week, Titans schedule here. So they play the Jaguars this weekend, the Lions and the Packers. And then the Titans. They play the 4 worst rushing defenses. So I'm going to lock in McCaffrey. I'm going to lock in Henry. We're going to lock in Adams and Hopkins. And then as far as flex plays, for this week, let's see here. Alvin Kamara going up against Philly. Michael Thomas going up against Philly. And then Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. Give me the 2 Saints. Give me the Saints. That's a much better offense right now than Justin Herbert. I think give me the 2 Saints in that situation over Eckler and Keenan Allen. Or you could just call it safe and just do Kamara and Eckler if you want. I guess that's kind of a good way to mix and match there if you want to get skin in both games. So what's up, Fabian? Yeah, we're watching the game here. I got it on just watching the game here on the side on the iPad. We got a little bit action going on here. So we did just see the Washington football team score a touchdown. It looks like Peyton Barber stealing those goal line carries. So that's not really fun for fantasy, but it keeps the game a little bit closer, makes Pittsburgh have to throw the ball. Let's see what else we're going on here. So yeah, we're assuming Drew Brees is back with this. So I'm not sure Brees is going to be back this game. I think it would be pretty crazy to see him back, but weeks 15 and week 16, the Saints are looking like pretty good favorites with Drew Brees to be back. So let me just pull up the Saints schedule the rest of the way. I know one of those games is going to be against the Chiefs, which that's going to be a game where I think you're going to want to start both of your New Orleans Saints guys. The Eagles might be a little bit tough game here, and then the Vikings, I think they could take advantage of the Vikings defense as well. So I'm probably leaning towards the Saints. The Chargers, man, they just I don't know what happened yesterday. That looked like a team that has basically just packed it in for the season. Justin Herbert threw the ball 53 times, and I think he only completed 26 passes. So the Chargers make me a little bit nervous there. I do think the Saints would be the best bet for that. So whatever other questions you guys got in the chat room. Otherwise, I was just kind of breezing through some of the waiver wire stuff. There is a link in the description for the YouTube channel if you guys wanted to look at some of that. But for the most part, I think it's going to be a pretty dry waiver wire run this week. And again, that's going to be going on Wednesday night. I think the guys that stick out on the waiver wire, where's Kiki Cutie here? So Cutie had himself a pretty nice day. He looks like he's going to be owned. He didn't score a touchdown, but he had a lot of yards. Where did Cutie go? So yeah, he was a top 6 receiver on the day, 22.1 points. And if we just kind of scroll down here, I want to look at the Texans schedule because he's stepping right into the Will Fuller amount of snaps and opportunities here. So you see 9 targets, 8 for 141. They play Chicago, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. So these Chicago defense, all of a sudden, I'm not really scared of them. We just saw Detroit have a really good game without Kenny Golladay or DeAndre Swift. So I'm not too scared about this matchup here. The Colts can be had in the passing game. We just saw what QD did against them in this game, so we should be excited about what he can do here. And then Cincinnati. So I do think that QD, if you need help at wide receiver or flex and your league's a little bit deeper, he could be a guy that, again, he's only 12.4% owned in ESPN leagues. So this is probably the one guy that I feel really good about getting on my roster for the waiver wire run this week. So yeah, the Chargers, I don't know. If you just take a peek at the Chargers schedule. Let's see here. So they play Atlanta this week, so that actually might be a good spot for a bounce back game for Herbert and company. And then they play the Raiders and the Broncos. So maybe the schedule actually looks kind of decent here. The Broncos did just play pretty well, though, against the Chiefs. and they're also kind of, a young team that's meshing together. They got Drew Lock and a bunch of young receivers here. So I do expect them to keep fighting and keep trying pretty hard. But the Falcons game, that actually could be a really good game. It's at home, but I mean, at this point, it's much more difficult to trust than I think our New Orleans Saints here. So should we drop Michael Pittman Jr. for Kiki Cutie? Let's take a peek and see how Michael Pittman Jr. ended up yesterday. So it looks like T.Y. Hilton's kind of surging here and taking back over his wide receiver one dominance in that offense. So we did see he caught all 5 of his targets, 46 yards. It's looking like this game against Tennessee and Green Bay are kind of outliers here. I think he's going to be much more wider of a boom bust to trust. And as far as the Colts offense, they have a lot of mouths to feed, whether that's T.Y. Hilton or the tight ends, or I guess, the running backs are a pretty big feature too. So I don't really think Pittman's a must play for the rest of the way. And whereas if you think about the Texans offense, it's Cooks, it's Cutie, and it's basically, throw the ball to Duke Johnson from what it looks like. So I do think Cutie would be a much safer play week to week and probably for the rest of the season. So I think I'm on board with Kiki Cutie over Michael Pittman Jr. the rest of the season. And then I guess the other part of the Colts offense that makes me a little bit nervous is that the Phillip Rivers situation with his foot. Let me just pull up Phillip Rivers here. Let's see if we can pull that up here. But it looks like he's got a pretty serious toe injury. Let's see if I can find anything on Phil Rivers. And they're expecting Phillip Rivers to have some surgery in the offseason. But Phillip Rivers is as tough as they come. He's going to play through whatever's going on with his foot right now. Let me just type in Phillip. I think that's 1L. Phillip Rivers. So let's just see here. So the word is he will need off-season surgery on his foot. He's got a plantar plate rupture described as a more severe than turf toe. So he's going to be playing and starting as long as he can handle the pain. But again, this is something to monitor. If he gets dinged up or anything, or he gets tackled awkwardly, all of a sudden the Colts offense becomes a little bit more shaky with Jacoby Brissett there. So I think I'm going to lean with Kiki Cutie in there. And now we're asking, drop J.D. McKissic for Ty Johnson or Zach Moss? Interesting. I might have to wait on this question, Turner, because if we watch Zach Moss tonight and he looks really good, it might make a lot of sense there. And I do think with Ty Johnson, one, he's on the Jets, and Frank Gore does have a concussion. So as far as like rest of season, I'm not sure Ty Johnson is anything more than just a 1-week wonder for this week. Whereas if we quick look at let's just take a look at what the Buffalo Bills did the last time we saw them. So they were on bye, or no, they played in week 12 here. So we'll pull up week 12's numbers. But Zach Moss has been getting more run than Devin Singletary. So in terms of last week, where they won against the Chargers 27-17, you see Zach Moss with 37 snaps, Devin Singletary just 25, 9 carries for 59 yards, 11 for 82 here for Devin Singletary, and then 2 catches, 9 yards, and then 3 for 20 for Singletary. So Moss is out snapping them. They kind of use them the same amount, but I do think the Buffalo Bills offense, if you're just looking at these offenses as a whole, I think I'd rather be attached to a Josh Allen offense. If anything happens to Singletary tonight, I think this is going to be an easy question. Yes, Zach Moss. But for now, let me just see what McKissic is doing. Is this? I'm assuming this is PPR for you, Turner. So McKissic's got 3 for 15. That's 1.5 there. We don't really like his ability here on the ground. So this is looking it's 5 fantasy points right now. So I guess we'll see what McKissic ends up with at the end of the game here. But this is not a really good test here against the Steelers, I think. So we might be. I guess also too with J.D. McKissic, we have to keep an eye on Antonio Gibson, because he left early with the toe injury. So that really has me worried. This might be a Peyton Barber, J.D. McKissic offense for a little while here. So we'll see about Gibson. So I think we're going to have to wait at least a day or two to get some information here. But especially if Zach Moss looks good tonight, we do Zach Moss does have a good opportunity to get some goal line touchdowns, especially as the season gets colder here in Buffalo. They might end up running the ball a little bit more. So I'm just kind of curious. Let's just see what Zach Moss has been up to the last few games. I'm curious just in terms of consistency with touches and fantasy points here. So he's averaging 8.9 fantasy points per game on the year. And looks like he had a really bad game week 10 here, only 2.7, but an 8.8. Looks like he got some touchdowns against Seattle, 12.8, a 20.1 here against the Patriots. That was the impressive game, and then a 10.2. So we might, I guess, if you look at this 5-game sample here, he busted once. So he's got an 80% rate, I would say, to be around 8 to 10 points. So I guess tonight it's a tough matchup against the 49ers. If Moss looks really good, I think I can endorse Moss there. But I guess I don't know. It really depends. These guys all have caveats in their backfield. Ty Johnson, we have to watch Frank Gore. If Frank Gore is going to play, I'm not interested really there. And then with McKissick, if we see that Antonio Gibson's got a pretty severe toe injury, McKissick might be worth holding on to in a PPR league just because in a pinch he's going to be the guy getting the most snaps in that backfield here. So that's a really good question. Because I think a lot of people are going to be looking towards that waiver wire this weekend, looking for those running backs to just kind of stash and hold for this fantasy playoff run here. So looking like Alex Smith is just getting harassed here back and forth. Just a game update real quick. It's 14-10. The Steelers offense hasn't looked great. I mean, if you take away this 50-yard touchdown to James Washington here, I mean, Washington's been hanging around. Smith has been getting sacked quite a bit, and then they did lose Antonio Gibson in this one. So this could be a lot closer. It looks like Logan Thomas here, 8 for 83. He's having a pretty good game here as well. And I guess, yeah, at this point, I'm probably going to have to add Peyton Barber to the waiver wire list. Because, I mean, we know that if Washington's going to get close, we've seen them with Antonio Gibson. They're going to run the football in and get the goal line touches there. And we've also seen Peyton Barber get the goal line touches tonight and as well as, in the season early in the season, he kind of vultured some touchdowns there. So let me just pull up the schedule here for Washington. Washington football team schedule. Peyton Barber. This might be an interesting one. I'll be curious to see what Washington does with their rookie running back this week. But so this week, again, playing the Steelers. They play the 49ers, then they play the Seahawks, and then they play the Panthers here. So I really like Peyton Barber for the Seahawks game and probably the Panthers game too. I guess with tonight, we'll see how the 49ers can handle Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. But I would think if we see that Antonio Gibson's got a pretty serious toe injury, he's going to be week to week. Maybe it's Peyton Barber that could be the guy that gets us the goal line touches here. He's got 7 for 15 and a touchdown here. I don't really think they throw him the ball much. I mean, he's maybe caught 3 or 4 passes all year. So this is it's gonna pique my interest. I just think, especially because most waiver wire runs are going to be pushed back, we'll be able to get a day or two of information here. And I think Wednesday night's going to be a pretty hot night for news. We can kind of break this situation down a little bit better here. But I like where your head's at. We got a lot of good names here. Again, yeah, Kiki Cutie is probably the one guy I feel really good about in terms of being probably a must-start flex the rest of the way here. He's a really good player. He was kind of in the doghouse of Bill O'Brien for a long time. He never really got an opportunity to see the field consistently under him. And after last week's game, we know what he can do, and hopefully he can start scoring us some touchdowns here. So a lot to like there with the Texans' potential, and they're going to fight too. I saw something where the Texans, they haven't lost to a team that's got a losing record, so they should be able to win some games. They do play Chicago this weekend, which, based on what we've seen so far, they should be able to go to Chicago and win. So a lot of good stuff there on the waiver wire. And then I guess I'm just curious, looking at some of the other guys here in terms of tight end scores. Darren Waller, what the hell? Coming in with the 45 burger. This was one of the top 10 tight end performances of all time in fantasy football. 200 yards, 13 catches, 2 touchdowns. So I hope he can keep this up and at least, give us a 15 to 20 point game next week. Travis Kelce, of course. Mike Gesicki. This was the one that really caught my eye, just in terms of snap counts, targets, and just workload here. He catches 9 for 88 and a touchdown. And this is with Tua. This is kind of what I wanted to see. I really wanted to see what one game with Tua looked like before I trusted our guy Mike Gesicki. But it looks like Gesicki could be a guy that we're going to lean on going into the fantasy playoffs. This was a game that it wasn't exactly close. It was 19-7. And just the fact that they kind of let Tua loose and he almost threw for 300 yards. I'm just pulling up the opportunity report right now to show you guys how the Miami Dolphins offense looked yesterday. But only 19 points as an output is a little disappointing. But the good news is they got 4 field goals yesterday. So if you turn maybe 2 of those field goals into touchdowns, you're looking at a much more important day for the Dolphins, and we will be talking about them a little bit more just with positivity here. But Tua, 26 of 39, almost 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown. He's not really going to rush and get you rushing yards here. Gaskin, we talked about him earlier. He had a really good game like usual. And then Parker was kind of the odd man out in this one. He did see 8 targets, though. But Gesicki, man, led the way with 11 targets. So that's 11 out of 39. That's almost a 33%, basically a 30% target share here. And again, 9 for 88 and a touchdown, 70 snaps here. You like what Gesicki can do. So he's probably going to be locked and loaded as a tight end 1 for us the rest of the way now that we know what he can do. Dan Arnold coming out of nowhere here. It looks like Logan Thomas, though, might have some value for us down the stretch here. He's only owned in like 25% of leagues here, so I'm probably going to throw Logan Thomas on the waiver wire list. He's actually been playing some pretty good football. I think if you look at, I can't remember when Alex Smith started. It might have been against this Dallas game is when he came in. Maybe he's got these starts in here, but all of a sudden he's putting up some double-digit games. This is the most volume he's seen since, weeks 1 and weeks 2. So I do think if you need a tight end to start, maybe Logan Thomas is a place to look here. Again, he's leading Washington right now in targets for tonight's game. So 8 targets. McLaurin needs to get some stuff going here. Only 2 for 14. Hopefully he can connect on a big 1 or 2 soon. Just kind of looking around other tight ends. TJ Hawkinson had a really good game. It looks like the Chicago Bears are going to be a team we target against the tight end. They play Houston this weekend. So I don't know. Houston with Jordan Akins, we'll see about Houston tight ends. A couple other things stick out here. Robert Tonyan, all of a sudden, tight end number 4 in the season. He might even move up in this. But again, he plays Detroit, Carolina, Tennessee. A really great schedule for the rest of the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and Robert Tonyan. And I guess Alan Lazard, too. He had a couple really nice plays here. So we love what the Packers offense is doing. Tyler Higbee with the touchdown catch, maybe entering back into our consideration here. He does play New England this weekend, so I'm not really excited there. But he's going to finish with the Jets and the Seahawks. And Higbee's only about 43% owned. So Higbee's a guy I'm keeping an eye on for tight end. If you guys do need any help with your tight end streamers here, our guy Turner here did put up, was it Turner or was it, Turner was talking about Jared Cook here. And he caught the touchdown last week from Taysom Hill, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. They do play Philadelphia this weekend. We'll probably get Taysom Hill for this game as well. But Kansas City and Minnesota, this could be a Drew Brees potential game here. If you want to just stash Jared Cook, see what happens. He's about 52% owned. He's definitely a guy I'm keeping my eye on there. And it looks like Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz came in his first game back, 5.1. We should see him get a little bit more snap counts, but I do think we can feel safe with both Goddard and Ertz in our lineups next weekend. And then, I don't know, Eric Ebron kind of hanging around here with 7.5 points. Nothing really else going on here at tight end. And then let's just take a quick peek at wide receiver here. We talked about QT already. He's probably the one favorite that I have for the most part. Rashard Higgins, man, I know they're going to be playing against the Baltimore Ravens this week, but it's going to be hard to trust. But man, he caught 6 of 9 targets for 95 yards and a touchdown. They're going to play Baltimore this weekend, but then they get the Giants and the Jets. 2 matchups here that if Higgins has a good game against Baltimore, we might feel a little bit more comfortable with him against the Giants and the Jets. So I'm kind of just putting him in the filing cabinet, and we'll see what he can do. But definitely, this is a guy to keep an eye on, as the Baker Mayfield offense was just hot yesterday. Another guy here that I think let's first click on Jamison Crowder here. He's about 75% owned. I can see Jamison Crowder if you need help in a PPR league. But the guy that really interests me and I thought looked really good last night was Tim Patrick. He's about 15.5% owned. He's been pretty boom bust for the most part, but you see a really good amount of double-digit games here. 2 touchdowns. If you took away the 2 touchdowns, it would be, 4 for 44. That's about an 8-point game there. So his floor is pretty decent. Only 4 targets, 2 targets. The Saints game doesn't count. But I think you're going to probably see him somewhere in the 6 to 9 target range the rest of the way. Playing up against Carolina this week, Buffalo and the Chargers. So it's not a tough schedule. And it seems like Drew Lock has a pretty good connection with him. And I'll tell you what, Tim Patrick, man, with Cortland Sutton out of the picture this year, he's played very, very well. And I think he's earned a role in this offense going forward, even when our guy Sutton comes back. Looks like we got a question from Turner. Next week, should we play Debo, QT, or Corey Davis? Asking all the tough questions. So who do the 49ers play? Let me just pull up the let me just pull up the schedule for next week. So week 14, big schedule here for the round 1 of the playoffs. So Kiki Cutie going up against the Chicago Bears. That's a noon game. And then we got Corey Davis going up against Jacksonville. That could be fun there. But I could also see that being a really big Derrick Henry game. We'll see how many pass attempts Ryan Tannehill is forced to play into. And then San Francisco against Washington. I guess I kind of want to see what the pass defense looks like. I mean, Washington's holding the Steelers offense to 14 points. So we could see the 49ers limited in a little bit of this one. But I do think it's going to be hard to bench Corey Davis again after what we just saw him do. And for the most part, Corey Davis, if we just pull up his numbers real quick here, I guess because this is a week away, we might need to see what Deebo Samuel looks like tonight, because if Deebo has a good game tonight, we might be liking him as well too. And if Deebo goes out and gets another 13 targets, I think that's a really strong move there. But Corey Davis, man, I don't know what happened in the Chicago game, but every other game he's been over double digits. But the thing with him is his target trees, or his target and receptions, are going to be kind of all over the board here, because we never know how many times Ryan Tannehill is going to throw the game. It might be a Derrick Henry game. It might not be a Derrick Henry game. His lowest point total his lowest yardage totals have been 35 and 36. So if you're comfortable, potentially getting, 8 to 10 points as a low point, I do think Corey Davis, he's been pretty hot with the touchdowns. Also, A.J. Brown is dinged up. So if we see A.J. Brown's going to be limited all week, I might lean into Corey Davis a little bit right now. He's playing some really good football, and he gets the Jacksonville Jaguars here. So that could be just one big play to make our day. So I think for now, I'm going to rank them because QT, I like QT. He's going to be a little bit hard to trust right away. But for now, I want to see what Deebo looks like tonight. So I think it's going to be between Corey Davis and Deebo Samuel for us. But definitely add QT if you can, even if you don't use him this weekend. That's just another team that's not able to pick him up and use him against you at some point. So I do like the idea. Basically, if those three are your options, I think you're sitting in a pretty good option there, where we're at least going to get 10 points. So hopefully Deebo can have a big game tonight for us. We're going on about 37 minutes here. Keep firing away questions in the chat room. I'm kind of just looking around here. Maybe we'll go back to the Roto world, and I'll just kind of read some of the news and stuff that caught my eye. Tomorrow night's show, we'll be going live at 6 o'clock. We'll be a lot more kind of like tonight. We'll just be doing some news blurbs, and we'll kind of review what we saw tonight. And then I don't know if anyone's into fantasy basketball. I will be doing a fantasy basketball preview show tomorrow night at 7:30. I'll be hanging out with a couple friends that I play fantasy basketball with, and we're just kind of, we're just going to see what we can do. It's nothing too serious. We're just going to kind of break down the landscape of the NBA tomorrow and kind of get into it that way. But anyways, here's the note on Drew Brees. He doesn't really have a time frame remaining yet, but we are expecting him to be back weeks 15 or week 16. Todd Gurley still dealing with that knee injury. I don't really think we're going to trust Todd Gurley the rest of the year. So if you're banking on him to be your RB2, I think this would be a good week to make sure you start, adding some backup guys there. Looks like Cam Akers was listed as a did not practice here. Again, that's just the day after a game. I don't think a lot of guys are going to practice here. Let's see on the next page. So yeah, this was what I was talking about earlier. Josh Jacobs, John Gruden said he wouldn't expect Josh Jacobs to play in week 14. So if you're banking on Josh Jacobs, hopefully you have a backup running back ready to go. We can talk about running backs more tomorrow night, but this is something to keep an eye on. Already John Gruden saying he's probably not going to play. So Turner's playing some fantasy basketball. Sweet. I think I'm probably going to be still doing like daily shows for fantasy football the rest of the way. But I think the goal would be to do 1 or 2 fantasy basketball shows a week. It's a good way for me to hang out with 2 of my friends here that I talk basketball quite a bit with, and we'll just kind of give our advice and some takes there. So that could be kind of fun as a 1 week kind of thing. So Harris, what's going on, man? Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you got any questions in the chat room there. We're kind of just going over some of the news and the notes here. Looks like there's a lot of stuff. Curtis Samuel again on the COVID list. We'll see Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey be the bell cows of that offense next Sunday. Christian McCaffrey, Again, Matt Rule saying he's hopeful, so this is all systems go for Christian McCaffrey. If you were patient and you had a good enough season to get into the playoffs, I think you're going to be feeling really good about your chances with getting the best fantasy football player back. So a lot of good things to expect out of Christian McCaffrey this week. And the Panthers, they're playing the Broncos, so we'll see. We'll see. He should. I mean, the way he's been playing in the 3 games he's played this year, I think he's averaging 30 fantasy points per game. So it's just really exciting to see the best player back, and right at the right time here too. So, man, the Chargers. I don't even want to talk about the Chargers. We're probably going to see Anthony Lynn get fired pretty soon here. We'll see what the team can do next week. Whoa, Christian McCaffrey was just put on your waivers. Should I grab him and drop James Conner? Hell yes, we should do that. I don't know if that's a free agent auction thing where you have to bid money on him, but Christian McCaffrey was just put on waivers? What? Yeah, man, I would go hard. I would go all in for that. And definitely that's a piece that can be a league-winning move. Man, someone cut Christian McCaffrey. I'm gonna just pull up the Panthers schedule here. I mean, even if it's Christian McCaffrey, so like when he plays, we're expecting, at least 20 points there. But he plays the Broncos, then the Packers, really good matchup there, and then Washington. I'm not really too worried about that. And then he finishes up with the Saints here. So I want Christian McCaffrey's available. That's an easy slam dunk there. So should we drop George Kittle or keep him in case I can play him in the championship? So Turner, is this a league where we can put him on IR? If you can hold on to him in IR, I'm totally cool with it. Also, I guess it really depends on who, if he's like your worst player in your team, I'm totally cool with it, because even if you don't use him week 16, I mean, it's just another opportunity where if say were you to drop him and pick up somebody else, somebody else could potentially use him. And I mean, what are the odds that person makes the championship and ends up playing you week 16 or week 17? Who knows? But I definitely would be cool with holding on to him. And yeah, you have him in the IR here. So I don't see a problem with it. I mean, you don't have somebody else that you would you don't see anybody else that you would have to move to IR. So I don't think he's hurting you. I would continue to stream. It looks like we were talking about Goddard or Jared Cook. I think I'm totally cool with rolling out with those guys for now. So Harris says no, and I am 100% getting them because I have first waiver. I can't believe that, Harris. That's nuts. That's a league-winning acquisition there. So, whew, awesome, Christian McCaffrey. That's good news, man. That's great news for you. So I guess we're just kind of bouncing back and forth here. As far as Turner streaming tight ends, I did want to just see here. As far as tight ends, I'm sure Robert Tonyan has been picked up by now too. Oh, you got Tonyan. Oh man, you're in great shape here. You might not even need all 3 of those dudes if you got Tonyan, Cook, and Dallas Goedert. At the moment right now, man, you're attached to Aaron Rodgers. And the really cool thing I noticed about Robert Tonyan is he's caught 34 balls on 40 targets. When he gets targeted, he catches the ball here. So he caught 4 or 5 yesterday, 5 for 5, 5 for 5, 3 for 4 here. So he's all of a sudden getting on a run here, and really, really good stretch of games here against the Lions, the Panthers, and the Titans. The Packers need to keep winning to stay in pace with the Saints here, because as soon as the Saints slip up, that's when the Packers can get the number 1 seed. So you're going to continue to see Robert Tonyan be used here. So I feel really good about Tonyan. I feel pretty good about Goddard's high floor. And then Cook, I guess he's worth holding on to, but I don't feel comfortable starting him with Taysom Hill. It'd have to be to wait to Drew Brees there. So Harris is saying, by the way, Robbie Anderson was dropped by the same person. Who should I? Oh my God. So Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, or Tyler Lockett? Man, that's tough. I don't know if I can justify cutting any of those guys. Keenan Allen the last couple of weeks has been disappointing. And I do think, let me just pull up Keenan Allen's numbers here. I can't remember who they play the rest of the way. I thought it was a pretty decent schedule. They play Atlanta this weekend. So if there's going to be a game for Keenan Allen to get back on the good side of things, it would be this weekend against Atlanta. But for the most part, Keenan Allen's been pretty safe and steady. Let me just actually filter this by a PPR league. Robbie Anderson, and we have to cut Keenan, Eckler, or Tyler Lockett. I mean, Keenan Allen's only had 2 games below double digits. I think I'm going to have a hard time letting Keenan Allen go. In terms of Tyler Lockett right now, though? Like, is Tyler Lockett a must-start play? And I'm assuming this is your 8 or 10 team league that we've been talking about for a while now. So let's just pull this up here. I mean, the thing with Tyler Lockett is you don't ever feel safe, starting this guy. And he's been, I think, 3 of the last 4 weeks good, double digits. He's seen 9 targets, 4, 9, 9. So he's probably the most volatile guy here, but you see a 5.3, an 8, a 7.3, an 8.4, a 5.9. So there's more of a risk here. I think in terms of consistency, I value Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, but Tyler Lockett could be the one guy that I think makes the most sense. And with Robbie Anderson, man, we know Curtis Samuel's going to be out. We know DJ Moore is going to be out this week we don't know, but it's pretty much likely that they're going to not play with the COVID designation now. But all of a sudden, Robbie Anderson's stepping into probably like a 11 to 13 target role here. And basically, the thing that I value, one of the number one things that I value for fantasy football is consistency. I want players, yes, that have a really high ceiling. Robbie Anderson or Lockett, I have a pretty good feeling that I'm going to get a decent game from Robbie Anderson. He doesn't have quite the boom part that 53-point game by Tyler Lockett, right? He doesn't have that kind of upside. But especially for this week, I think I kind of like Robbie Anderson against the Broncos. If I had to cut one, I'm going to cut Tyler Lockett. That's a tough question, though. Whew. Don't feel good cutting Tyler Lockett attached to Russell Wilson, but I don't know. Robbie Anderson, man, this is what he's been doing all season with Curtis and DJ Moore in the lineup. So now you're telling me those two are gone. I know Christian McCaffrey's back, but the other crazy part here is Robbie Anderson's only scored 2 touchdowns all year, and you see that he's easily getting double digits without touchdowns. So there's a really strong chance that if there's a touchdown thrown on Sunday, it's going to be to Robbie Anderson, and it could easily be his best game of the season here. So maybe we're looking at these first couple games here where he's over 100 yards, a touchdown, 50% chance at a touchdown. I think Robbie Anderson over Tyler Lockett. Man, that's a tough question. You guys got to play. You guys got to start playing in some 12-team leagues. Whew, making me sweat over here, cutting some good players. So I guess we're going on about 47 minutes here. I'm going to do a quick game update here. Pittsburgh's up by 7 points here. We're kind of just 13 or so minutes left in the fourth quarter here. I don't really see anything too crazy here. Terry McLaurin still just 2 for 14. That's disappointing. Chase Claypool only 2 for 38. Deontay Johnson 7 for 69 and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster only 3 for 3. That's not great at all. So it looks like Deontay Johnson's coming on pretty strong here. I think he's got probably the most consistent power here that I like for the receivers over there. So we're looking at Turner's question here. How's my team? Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Myles Gaskin, James Robinson, Zach Moss, Keenan Allen, Corey Davis, Allen Robinson, Kiki Cutie, Debo, Cook, Tunyon, Goddard, Tucker, and Packers defense. I stream kickers in defense. Yes. Oh, I think we're gonna probably want to hold on to Tucker. I think for the next while, I'm totally fine with that. Packers defense has a really good opportunity this weekend against Detroit, so I'm totally cool with them. I think you're starting James Robinson and Myles Gaskin for sure. The one area that we wish we could get better in, I think, would be the running back. You do have Moss as your RB3. If we could improve that, I think that would be ideal. But Keenan Allen, Corey Davis, Allen Robinson, QT, and Debo. I mean, those guys, especially next week, they're probably all top 30 receivers in the rankings. So you have a really strong wide receiver group there. And then, at this point, I think we're going to be rolling out Mahomes, no question, the rest of the way. They're going to be playing the Miami Dolphins in Miami this weekend. So roll out Mahomes. And I guess I'm all about the process here. Yes, Justin Herbert has a really nice schedule against Atlanta, but man, they just did not look like a professional football team yesterday in all phases of the game here. So I think I'm going to continue to roll Mahomes. We're going to roll. Oh, you got Wayne Gallman too. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better there. I do like Wayne Gallman. So yeah, man, this team is looking really stacked and potentially poised for a run here. Jared Cook, Robert Tonyan, and Dallas Goedert at the tight end spots. Yeah, you've kind of stumbled into one of the problems of creating a really, really good fantasy football team where your team is just so good and so deep that these weekly decisions, man, they don't make it very easy on us. But from what I like here, you got 5 top 30 receivers. You got James Robinson and Gaskin. I would say Robinson's a lock for basically a top 12 finish from this point on the rest of the way. And Myles Gaskin as steady as a running back too as you can find him. And I don't know, really good squad here from Turner. I like what we got going on here, guys. So I don't know if you guys got any more questions. We're going on about 50 minutes here. I think I did post some defenses and stuff that I like streaming here. I did list the Packers here. Turner said he was streaming them. I don't really know. I think a lot of these defenses are going to be owned for the most part here. So the Packers going up against Detroit, Seattle against the Jets. These would be two of my guys that are probably lesser owned for the most part and should be widely available for you guys. But I do have a list of things going on here if you guys want to check that in the link below. And I think tomorrow I'll start pumping in my start sit column and we'll get some of that stuff rolling. But I don't know. Tomorrow night we'll be going live at 6 p.m. We'll kind of do the same thing. We'll just look at the news. We'll talk about, I guess I'll probably talk a lot about Buffalo and San Francisco if we learned anything from that game. We should have a lot of information and data points from that. And then hopefully we get some injury reports on some of these guys here, especially like Antonio Gibson, Kenny Galladay. We'll see if he's practicing. So we'll have a lot more to share tomorrow night for sure. But I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. Again, if you guys are interested in fantasy basketball, after my Tuesday night show, I'll be doing a basketball. We're kind of just viewing it as like a landscape of the NBA. We're going to be talking about all the teams and just seeing who's new, who's going to have opportunities and stuff. So we're going to get into some fantasy basketball on the Fellow KGB channel. We got Turner saying, should we think about starting Gallman over Gaskin some weeks or always start Gaskin? At the moment right now, it looks like Gaskin's got, just everything rolling and just the way he's played, and we don't really like any of the other backs there. I do think Gaskin has the higher floor. And the other thing, too, that made me nervous was Alfred Morris scoring 2 touchdowns yesterday. What the hell was that? So I'm pulling up the Miami Dolphins schedule here. They play the Chiefs, they play the Patriots, and they play the Raiders. So I definitely love him against the Raiders. And then I wouldn't be nervous about starting him against the Chiefs because we just saw Melvin Gordon last night rushed like 15 times for 130 yards. And I do think Myles Gaskin's the type of player that could frustrate the Chiefs and kind of gash them for a couple big plays. So I do like him against the Chiefs. Against the Patriots, we did look at his game logs from earlier in the year, and it looked like he had like a 9-point game against the Chiefs, and that was probably the first game of the year where they were just kind of seeing what they have in him. So I do think you can get some running back points against the Patriots. And as we see here, his worst game of the season was 9.2. When he's in, like, look at 22 attempts, 16, 18, 18, 20, and then he's involved in the passing game. So to PPR league, I do think, if this is a bad game from Myles Gaskin without a touchdown, 16 points, I think we're feeling pretty good about that. And then as far as Wayne Gallman, it's weird because the Giants are all of a sudden starting to play some really good football, and we should see Daniel Jones back. The Giants are going to win the NFC East. What the hell? So Wayne Gallman in a PPR league, we see he's on a tear too. The last 6 games, he's been over double digits. 16 for 135, getting 8.4 yards per carry against the Seahawks. So all of a sudden, Wayne Gallman, let me just take a peek at the Giants' schedule coming up. Cardinals, Browns, Ravens. Cardinals, Browns, and Ravens. Let's just, I'm just curious to see where those teams rank in terms of running back points allowed here. So Cardinals, Browns, and the Ravens. Yes, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens. We see let me filter by the upside down button here. So Cardinals, Browns, and Ravens. So you see the Ravens here are the 11th best team against the running back so far right now. They've allowed 7 touchdowns. They do allow a good amount of receiver points here. Let's see, the Cardinals kind of middle of the road, about 23.3. They've allowed 12 touchdowns on the year. And then the other team we were looking at, can't escape my mind here, the Browns. Where are the Cleveland Browns at? So the Browns are top 10. So Wayne Gallman's got a little bit more stingier of a test. I think I'm going to probably just say we're going to start Gaskin until further notice, especially against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are a team that we can take advantage of. The Chiefs rank 19th here against the run. They've allowed 60 catches, 520 yards, and quite a bit of rushing yards here. So I'm going to fall into Myles Gaskin, and then we can reevaluate that on a weekly basis here. So I don't know, lots of good questions going on in the chat room here. I'm just kind of checking back on the score of the Washington football team game here. I don't expect much here, but it looks like it's still 10-17. Let's just see here. It's a little bit slow. But again, I don't know. I'm going to be going live at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. You guys can come hang out with questions if you want. I think that's going to do it for tonight's show, though. I'm going to log off. I got some things to take care of, and I want to see the ending of this game and enjoy the 49ers and the Buffalo Bills game. I think that's a really good game. 49ers, as the Arizona Cardinals lost last night, really opening up the door in the NFC race. Let me just pull this up real quick. The Minnesota Vikings have all of a sudden stormed in and taken the 7th seed in the NFC. And if the 49ers win tonight, they will be tied with the Vikings essentially for the 7th seed in the playoffs, which should be a really good battle to watch down the road. I know the Vikings don't have a very favorable schedule. It looks like my internet's kind of being stupid here. Let me see if I can pull that up one more time here. But the 49ers are definitely a team to watch as we get closer to the postseason. I think they could be a team that sneaks in and makes a lot of noise. I like a lot of their playmakers. They're getting healthier on both sides of the ball. So that's try to watch that game tonight. We'll see. There's a lot of things on both sides of the ball. We're going to watch Debo. We're going to watch Mostert. Brandon Ayuk is back. And then on the Buffalo side, the young running backs there with Singletary and Moss. And then, of course, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. So a lot to be excited about tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and finish up with this Washington Steelers game. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you later. Peace.